So-Called is sponsored by LoveBoiseParks.org, which donates 50% of all profits to support, promote, and preserve open spaces in Boise, Idaho. Use promo code SOCALLED for 10% off all your purchases at LoveBoiseParks.org.
Open up your eyes and explore as many opportunities as possible. You know, when you're young, just get into the field you want to be in and just do something to start getting the experience. But I think once you start to get a strong opinion on what you like and what you don't like, you should take ownership of it.
This is Mark Wojcik, and I'm wondering, how's your so-called career? Welcome to So-Called, the podcast that explores the why and how of work. On today's episode, we meet Nate Leining, CPA and Senior Accountant at Coles Reinstein. When you think about accounting, you might think taxes, which isn't wrong, but Nate is pursuing a different specialization in the field.
In the last 2 years, I've gotten more into some other areas, particularly business appraisals and litigation accounting, forensic accounting. And so now what I do, my time is basically split 50-50 between traditional tax and accounting work and then some of the more niche areas like the business appraisals and the litigation accounting. When I say business appraisal, so the easy thing to compare that to is a real estate appraiser.
Okay.
So if you want to buy a house, you need to know what the house is worth. You hire an appraiser and they come in and do a series of calculations and come up with a value for the house. Mm-hmm. A business appraisal, well, it's done differently, basically is the same thing. We're looking at a business and we're saying how much is this business worth. So if you want to buy or sell a business and you need to know what should the price be, we'll come in and tell you what it's worth. There are a variety of different reasons why you might do that, but that's essentially what it is.
Okay. And what do you enjoy about that work?
There's a few things that I enjoy. I really like the business appraisal side of things in particular. I like the tax side. I like the tax planning and helping people save money. But most of the work you do on the tax side, you pretty much know the rules and you know all the boxes and you're putting numbers where they go, and it's pretty cut and dry. On the appraisal side, it's almost more a work of art. An appraisal at its core is an opinion. It's an opinion of value, and you could have two appraisers appraise the same company and come up with a different result because there's a lot of human judgment involved. And I enjoy that aspect of it. I like getting to really use my brain and have to really think about something and come up with a good answer. And not only come up with a good answer, but be able to explain why I've come up with that answer. So to me, the business appraisal side of things, it almost allows me to use a little bit of creativity. That's probably not the best word for it. I guess maybe professional judgment, but you're less boxed in, and there's a little bit more critical thought involved than in just preparing a tax return or preparing some bookkeeping or some financial statements.
What do you find satisfying about that?
So two things, and this runs across all of the work we do, whether it's tax or appraisals or forensic accounting. But one thing that I really enjoy is that in most cases we're actually saving people money or helping them to create a better financial outcome. So when we do a tax engagement, we can go through and by strategizing and by planning, we can actually save somebody money. We can show you, look, this is what your tax bill would be, but if we do X, Y, and Z, we can reduce it to this. And similarly, on the other side of our firm, of our practice with the litigation and the appraisals, when somebody's going to buy a business, for example, we can actually, they might come in with a price that they think they should pay. If we do a business appraisal on it, it may be that what they had in mind is too much, and we may actually be able to help them to negotiate a better price, and so they're actually going to save money by using our services. So when we have an engagement where we can actually see somebody reap a financial benefit from what we do, to me that's very rewarding. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that, in my mind, we help create peace of mind for our clients by providing a high-quality service and by doing things that are outside of their area of expertise. So if you're a tax client for us, hopefully you can sleep well at night. If you've got transactions coming up, things that you're contemplating doing, we're going to walk you through that and get you to the best possible outcome. So it takes stress off of your plate, hopefully. Yeah. And the same thing is true on the litigation side and the appraisal side. If somebody engages us, they know that they're going to get a high quality product. Our firm has put out reports that have gone all the way up to the Idaho Supreme Court and have held up. And so if you hire us in a litigation engagement to do something for you, you know that what we're going to produce is going to be something that is high quality, and you don't have to worry about whether or not it's going to be good enough.
Yeah.
So we create peace of mind, and we create actual financial benefits for people. And to me, when you see that happen, those are the two most rewarding things.
I asked Nate if there were aspects of his work that he found more challenging.
Everybody talks about doing what you love and finding your passion, and that if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't think I have found anybody who really is successful at what they do and never has to do anything that they don't like. I think that's part of any job, and accounting is no different. I think regardless of what area you're in, I really enjoy the business appraisal side, but there are still parts of that. There's still elements of it that are not my favorite thing. And I enjoy the tax side too, and but when you're working 70 hours a week for weeks on end, eventually keying in tax returns, it can get a little bit monotonous.
Yeah.
And there are ugly parts of tax. When a client comes in and they haven't filed tax returns in 7 years, and we're happy to help them with that. And again, I want to help them to have peace of mind and to get the best financial outcome. And so we're happy to take on those situations, but not all of that is fun.
Nate's strategy for developing his areas of interest has been to seek out as many different types of accounting work to see which areas hold the most interest for him.
Well, for me, part of it has been figuring out kind of my niche within accounting. So like we said, there are a lot of different areas you can get into. You can do tax, you can do audit, you can do corporate accounting, you can do forensic accounting, you could work for the IRS, you can work for the FBI. In fact, the FBI, more than anything, looks for people with accounting degrees because most of what they deal with is white-collar crime.
Yeah.
So there are a million different things you can do as an accountant. So for me, part of it has been trying to experience as many of those as I can get my hands on and figuring out which of those I like the best.
Yeah.
And then figuring out a way that I can spend more time doing that. So the firm I'm at now, I've been here 2 years. The firm I was at before, I was probably 80 to 90% tax. I got to do a little bit of forensic accounting and worked on a few audit engagements, but I was mostly tax. I got enough of a taste of the litigation and forensic and appraisal side to know that that's what I wanted to pursue. Mm-hmm. And there was an opportunity at this firm where they were looking for somebody with a tax background, but who really wanted to pursue the other side, so to speak. And so now I'm at a firm where I'm right now doing half and half, but I'm on a track to concentrate even more on the litigation and valuation side as opposed to tax.
Okay.
So for me, that's been the biggest thing, is finding the area that I really like and being able to pursue that more as opposed to tax, which is not necessarily my favorite.
Yeah.
And so that's part of it. The other thing is the part of tax that I really enjoy is the client interaction, because those things I talked about, seeing a client save money and seeing them be able to be at peace about their situation, you don't see that unless you have client interaction. When you're just doing the behind-the-scenes stuff, which somebody has to do, but when you're just doing that, it's just more of the monotonous, busy work, and you don't get to see the results as much.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to develop my network and tried to bring in clients so that I've had clients of my own that I can work with, and I can see those results.
Yeah.
And that part of it has made the tax side more fun for me.
Yeah. A happy set of circumstances and a key mentor led Nate to his career in accounting. Are there any people or situations that have influenced how you approach your work and how you found what you enjoy?
Yeah, actually, I was late in finding accounting. I was well over halfway through school studying other things when I kind of stumbled into accounting.
Oh, interesting.
A variety of things happened while I was in college. One of the more influential ones was I met my wife, and the reason that relates to this is I also met her dad, who is a CPA, has his own CPA practice, and specializes in business appraisals, forensic accounting, and litigation accounting.
Okay.
So growing up, I didn't really know anything about accounting. I heard the cliches, bean counters, number crunchers, all that. I didn't really know anything more than anybody else did about accounting. And I did start getting interested in finance, and originally decided to be a finance major. Along the way, you have to take some accounting classes. And after I took the first couple accounting classes, I started to feel like everything started to click for me in the business and the financial world. And then when I started to see what my father-in-law was doing, he was doing things that are outside of what you typically think of with accounting, as far as auditing and tax goes. I started to see all the things that you could do. Mm-hmm. I started to see, what I earlier referred to as the more creative side of accounting.
Yeah.
And I started to really get interested in it at that point. And I actually ended up being able to do an internship with him my senior year.
Oh, cool.
And got a little bit of a taste of what that's like to do the valuation and the forensic work. And from that point on, I really had a strong interest in doing it. And I went on to graduate and got my first job at a firm doing just taxes. Mm-hmm. But I always had this in the back of my mind. I'd really like to get into that other stuff too.
Yeah.
And it took 4 years, but eventually I finally was able to work my way back into it. And I probably would have never even thought of that or been aware of it had I not met him and gotten an up-close view of what he was doing.
Whether or not a career in accounting is for you, some knowledge of the subject is a good foundation for everyone and for many kinds of work.
No, I don't think very many young people, I don't think they would naturally just think of, oh, I want to major in accounting. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
But accounting, the first thing they'll tell you in any accounting textbook is accounting is the language of business.
Yeah.
And so anybody who wants to be successful in business is at some point going to have to get at least a basic level of understanding of accounting. And especially, nowadays with all the small businesses popping up and all the self-employed people, I think it's becoming really more important than ever. But yeah, once you get that background of accounting, you really have much more of an inside-out understanding of any business and the way it operates. And so, if you want to go down the corporate path of CEO or CFO, accounting is a great foundation for that. If you want to own your own business, accounting is a good foundation for that. If you want to be an accountant but own your own accounting firm, accounting is a good foundation for that. So there are a myriad of different directions you can go once you understand accounting.
No matter your career, Nate recommends seeking out as many experiences as you can and then developing skills in your area of interest.
I think it's tough, especially when you're young. You first come out of school, you don't really have any experience, you don't know what you don't know, and it's hard initially, but once you've been in your field for a few years, you start to get a feel for what you like and what you don't and what works and what doesn't. Mm-hmm. At that point, I think it's really important to take ownership of your career. I realized 4 years into my career that I actually wanted to move in a somewhat significantly different direction. And so I specifically sought out an opportunity to do that. A lot of people are not happy in their career because they just keep doing what they've always been doing, and they can be a little bit afraid to get up and move or switch areas of concentration. But I think, when you're young, just get into the field you want to be in and just do something to start getting the experience. But I think once you start to get a strong opinion on what you like and what you don't like, you should take ownership of it.
It's not always obvious what careers match what you like and your strengths. Luckily, there are resources to help you identify and refine the options that might be a fit for you.
One other thing that's just popped in my head that I've kind of gotten into since my college days that I wish I would have been more aware of when I was in college is, I guess, what you could call personality profiling.
Mm-hmm.
And that I'm kind of lumping a bunch of stuff in there. So anything from like the Myers-Briggs test to the DISC profile to the Colby testing. There's a huge number of resources out there. Strength Finders. There's a bunch of resources out there, and those can be helpful in kind of narrowing down what types of things you're naturally gifted at.
Yeah.
And they've been helpful for me in kind of refining my career, but I wish I would have had access to some of those things or been aware of some of those things when I first got started and when I was in college. I think it could have streamlined my process. A lot of the free versions give you quite a bit of information. They'll give you a pretty good summary of your result, and I think especially if you do several of them and you start piecing it together, I think that can help to provide some insight on what direction you should go. You may take one of these tests and it spits out a list of results and says, hey, with your personality type, you might be good at all of these things, and there may be something on there that you never would have thought of before. You might explore it and it actually might turn out to be just what you were looking for.
If you'd like to talk about career direction and options, accounting or otherwise, Nate is willing to help. Check the show notes for how to connect with him. Not surprisingly, Nate has been both strategic and intentional in taking ownership for the next chapters of his career.
Yeah, so right now I'm pursuing a designation called the ABV, which is Accredited in Business Valuation. Okay. And I'm hoping that will allow me to pull in more work of my own to cultivate relationships with attorneys and clients and be able to actually be the one signing reports and testifying on reports. And so that's kind of my short-term business goal. My long-term goal is that I'd like to be a partner at the firm where I'm at. I really believe that if you're going to make a career out of public accounting, partnership in the long run is the way to go.
Yeah.
You have the most earning potential, you have the greatest ability to control your career path, and so that would be kind of my long-run career goal. And I'm fortunate enough that I work with a couple of guys who have a lot of expertise, especially in this valuation and litigation side of accounting.
Mm-hmm.
They've been doing it for a long time and are really good at it. And so, just the regular conversations that I have with them and just observing the way they do things, I think, is extremely valuable. And when I came here, so I moved to Idaho 2 years ago, intentionally picked Boise as a place to live, and was very intentional about picking this particular firm. One of the big designations out there in the business appraisal world is called the ASA designation. It takes 10,000 hours of doing business appraisals to get it. There are only 4 people in Idaho that have that designation. I work for 2 of them. So
okay.
I was very intentional about picking a firm that had essentially mentors in place, people that I could look to where I could really learn how to be the best at this particular area. And so that really was all by design. But I think it's really important, whether you have people where you work or outside of where you work, you have to have people that you can look up to that have done it before, that can tell you where they've messed up and tell you what's worked and what hasn't. That's really important.
Knowing what you know now about your career, what advice would you give your younger self?
Well, I think what you're doing here is pretty cool, which is why I was interested on being on the podcast, I wish when I was 18 I would have had some resources like this. And so I would just encourage anybody who's 18, 19, 20, really open up your eyes and explore as many opportunities as possible. I would have never told you when I was 18, I would have never thought that I would go into accounting. It was nowhere on my radar. I didn't know anything about it. And so I think the more things you can expose yourself to, the better off you are. So listen to podcasts, talk to people in various careers about what they're doing, job shadow if you can, read about various job positions and industries, and don't be afraid to think about something that you might not have considered before. If something pops up on your radar, explore it. Accounting was never on my radar. I took Accounting 101 and Accounting 102, and then all of a sudden, I met my father-in-law, and all of a sudden I thought, well, I never would have pictured myself as an accountant, but this might actually be right for me.
So Called is sponsored by LoveBoiseParks.org, which donates 50% of all profits to support, promote, and preserve open spaces in Boise, Idaho. Use promo code SOCALLED for 10% off all your purchases at LoveBoiseParks.org. If you enjoyed today's episode, please let us know. Subscribe and leave us a review. So Called is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and wherever you get your podcasts.